Hi, she's Trixie and I'm Sarah, and this is our Yarn World, a place where we come to share the love of yarn crafts and all it gives us and what we hope it gives you. This is episode 68 today, am I right?
68.
Okay.
Yes.
And we're coming with some great progress,
Yes.
a find, a completed, and a sorta done.
And we're going to explain that right now. Well, the circles are all made into squares. The squares are now all sewed together into 4 by 8, because there's 32 squares. And I am starting to put on a colorful border. I did, when I first got all the squares together, I did a round of just black all the way around the edge before I started on the color. Because it is 4 by 8, it is longer. It's longer,
narrow.
Longer by. It's doubled long ways, and it's half the width. I mean, it's.
If you had a perfect square, which would be an 8 by 8, she has cut into a perfect rectangle.
Yeah, it's in half. So it is longer than it is wide. So
Did you do that deliberately?
No, it was just how many squares I ended up making. How many circles and squares I ended up making. I did not do that on purpose. I thought it would be wider than that. But because I have all these extra beautiful, wonderful colors, I can extend the sides by 8 colors. And what I'm doing is double crochet 2 rows of each color. So I'll have 8 colors, 16 rows per side. So it should bring it out, maybe not square, but still a lot better than it was in the beginning.
It will be much more squared off.
Yeah. And then when I get done, because I haven't done anything on the top or bottom, I'm going to do another round of black. And that should do it nicely all the way around. So I'm not even sure how to show you this. I did.
Do you need my help with this before I start on this
Nope.
thing?
I did do just randomly worked colors, but what I did, because I had 8 colors and because I had 4 rows, I made sure that one of each color was going down in each of the 4 rows, if that makes any sense. I do have all 8 colors in each row going down. And because one of the colors, I did 3 purples and 1 variegated in its place instead of 4 for the purple. That's all in there too. So I'm just going to kind of show you a little bit of how it's looking. It's just kind of a great big polka dotty neon jumble of goodness. I love how it's turning out. And for the edges, I'm only going on to the 5th color right now on the first side. So I told myself as soon as I was done with all this black, I was going to start with yellow because it was the brightest, beautifulest, most colorful thing that I could find that didn't, that was going to take me off that black. And then I went into the pink, and then the green, and then coral. I do have an orange in here as well, but the coral is kind of a pinkish orange, so it might not be coming off as that, but it is starting. And then I've got the light teal starting next. I do have a list of colors that I'm going in order of because I'd like to do that the same colors on the other side. Although I'll have the colors on the first side too. But it's just the fact that, you know, if you're just going to pick a ball out of your box of balls, you just want to be able to look at the list and see what the next color is. But so far, I've gotten, I mean, the last video that you saw me have anything to do with this, I still had a stack of 11 circles to make into squares, and now it's actually together and in a blanket form and just working on edges now. So I think I've done quite a bit. Yeah, in 2 weeks I've done quite a bit. But now it's fun again, you know. I don't know how to explain it any better than that. The circles kind of got tedious after you do 32 of them, you know. And then making them into squares got a little tedious too, because you had to do 32 of them. And now I get to do the fun stuff, you know, the extra, let's see, embellishing in it. And I am really having a joyful time doing that. The thing that she was talking about that is a good find, and maybe you've all seen this. You know, I've seen it in the past, and you know, you can find all these kind of goodies in the thrift shops and stuff, and I may have had this to begin with, and then Sarah had it, and I don't remember how we...
I almost swear I got this from a library sale that I was at.
Well, that's another good way to get books. And it's called The Reader's Digest Complete Guide to Needlework, and it does embroidery, needlepoint, knitting, applique, quilting, patchwork, macrame, crochet, rug making, and lacework. So there's a lot of different stitch combinations in here, and the back of the book. And so you know, I don't know. I'm gonna put it up here if you guys want to take a screenshot. You know, it's an older book, but it's got all kinds of goodie. You know, all kinds of different stitches you can do for your embroidery, all different crochet, all different knitting, the supplies that you're gonna need, all that kind of stuff.
What each thing is generally actually used for in regards to materials like canvas, what types of threads or yarns are used for, typically, like what's best for what sort of activity or project you're working on.
Right.
It's very knowledgeable.
Now it does say it's copywritten, or the copyright is 1979. I do believe that, just the style of the book and everything. But the vintage finds are almost better than new books, because you get all those old stitches that maybe the new books don't even incorporate anymore. Or they do, but they're doing it their way now. And I just think sometimes going back to the old ways is not a bad deal. And a lot of people don't know how to do exactly how to do all these old vintage things, but now this book is showing you how, and it not only shows you how, but it tells you how too. And Sarah and I were talking about that. You know, for people who are vision oriented, you can read something and maybe you just don't understand it, but when you see the picture going along with the words, it makes it a whole lot more sense. And but sometimes just seeing the picture isn't going to work either. You need the words too. And so that's...
Well, if you just looked at that, there's no way you'd be able to...
Yeah. And so we're grateful to be able to find these things in the thrift stores, in the library sales, wherever you can find the old vintage stitch books is a good deal. And so we just wanted to say that we found this, and that if you wanted to find it too, you've got the screenshot for it. And you know, if I can remember to do it, I'll put it in the description area. I haven't been able to remember to do that the last couple of things, so I'm glad that I gave you time to get a screenshot of it each time that we've done that. But what are you working on there?
Well, first off, before I share this, there is a completed work that I did complete earlier this since last week that I have not had the time to. I didn't have the resources to be able to show it to you before it was given over to its owner.
Yeah.
And that is. I was working on a Link doll, L-I-N-K, Link doll. He is the main warrior in the Legend of Zelda franchise, and I made it for my
nephew
Nicholas.
Yeah.
I was not able to attend his birthday, but I was able to fully complete the doll.
Yeah.
And it had, if you guys have followed us, any of you guys have followed us for a while, not this year, but the year before, roughly around when we started our channel, we had, I had been on a binge of completing gifts for my nephews, Nicholas, Noah, and Braxton.
Yeah.
And Nicholas and Noah got dolls. Nicholas got the Mario, Noah got the Bowser, and then it was Braxton that got the Shark Cat. The following Christmas last year, I was supposed to get them the Link, a Godzilla, and for Braxton I was going to do a Baby Yoda. But Christmas time, around Thanksgiving, I went through a very huge life change moment, and things kind of got a little crazy. And it's not something I'm really going to be sharing too much of, but it just got to the point where a lot of my priorities and focus were being taken up by other things, and I wasn't able to dedicate the time to the projects that I originally had meant for Christmas.
Right.
And so it's not that they are incomplete. They just remained whips for such a long time.
Yeah.
But their birthdays are coming, and so as their birthdays are coming, I am choosing to complete them for that sake, so that they are still in their hands and in their possession. And luckily I was able to offer all three of the boys something within those interests to them last Christmas in the forms of books. So that ended up working rather well. Yeah. But Terry, I'm gonna need to text you later. I had a friend text me. I would ask that everyone not look at the background of these photos. My house is a mess. I have 2 little kids. There's a lot going on in the background, but I want to show you the completed work of the doll. This is Link. His sword is able to come out of his sheath that is attached to his back, and he is a fully completed work. And this is the shield I made for him out of felt. I kind of just winged it. I know I've grew up on this video game, so it's not that hard to kind of get a visual of how other people have replicated the shield and just kind of go off of their...
Nicholas loved it.
And then obviously, come on, I don't need that. Obviously you have his back. Originally the designer of this pattern suggested making the shield with its bracing points to be able to have it on the arm, so that both the sword could be taken out and the shield would be activated. But in a resting state for this character and the video game setting, his shield is carried on his back over his sheath that he carries on his back instead of at the hip, because of the travel that this character does, there's no way that anyone wouldn't carry it this way.
Yeah.
And if you actually see more timepieces, this is more of how they actually carried their weapons, more of like a backpack style.
Yeah.
And so I attached the shield to his back like it normally is done in the video game. And I sewed it right onto the sheath.
Okay.
So he was still able to wish out the sword, but he was fully completed. He was, oh Lord, he's a bigger doll.
Yeah.
Like I've shown his progress to you when I was actively working on him before.
Maybe like 18 inches?
Yeah, he could be a solid foot, but he might just be roughly just a little bit over a solid foot.
Okay.
But he's definitely a bigger doll. I think that Nicholas will get a lot of use and wear out of him and a lot of good memories out of him.
And I'll tell you what, when my son brought that to his
I wasn't able to go to the party, so my brother brought the toy to him.
He said that everybody was just gaga over it, and that they were asking, does Sarah do that for money? I mean, we could order stuff from her, and he's like, yeah, that's what she does. And so Sarah may be getting more orders. We just don't know yet. They were very, very impressed with the work that she did.
Well, that's very good to hear. That's not what he told me, but that's great. Not that he didn't tell me that people didn't enjoy the work, but just more of like I wasn't well aware that people were asking about requesting my services. But that's fine. It's not like I have a lot going on. My husband's birthday was yesterday. He is now 34 years old. And it was a lot of fun goofing off and making him have to actually have candles on his cake because our kids refused to not have candles on his birthday cake.
Yeah, they wanted something for him to blow out. That's what birthdays are, right?
Well, both of them at the same time, as soon as the song was done, went and just they both like caught one candle, and he's like, "Wait!" and he starts blowing them out, and he's like, "They're mine!" and then they're just like, "Yay! Now we can eat."
They're 2 and 3. They're very easily impressed.
Yeah. Well, pretty much. Luckily, he was very grateful for what we were able to do in celebration of his birthday. His parents have decided that they're going to celebrate his birthday Friday, so we're going to be able to enjoy some time with his family then. But on what we were able to do as a personal family setting, just because July is so hot and he is very easily overheated because of his heart condition, there's nothing that he would rather have done at this time than just be able to just take the time to be in an air-conditioned environment and just have some good food and just spend time with family and friends. There was no friends available, but today he's able to celebrate with one of his best friends by taking a hike in the evening, which is his favorite time to take a hike. And normally I would take it with him, but it sounds like we'll be able to do that more in the fall, which is a little bit
more her style.
Well, both of our styles, because that's the season in which we got married. Because fall was our favorite time to actually do hiking.
Yeah.
Because summer is just obnoxious and the bugs are everywhere.
Yeah.
But besides the desserts and the meal that I cooked for him, which he very much was happy that I did, I have been actively making him a dragon. Backstory. Now, first off, I was very excited about the meal that I made him yesterday.
She kept sending me pictures.
When we were dating, I was very young and I didn't know how to cook. And especially meat, I was very apprehensive because I knew that meat had to be cooked correctly, otherwise you could get sick. Yeah. And it was one of those things that it was just gave me too much anxiety to like actually consider having to actually do it. Right. And I had been young enough at the point where it was never anything that I had to actually, it was really required of me. And so what what's happened is that like over the course of this time, one of the first things I asked him when we were first dating was, what's your favorite meal? And he had said barbecued chicken. And I remember even before we were married just being like, I want to be able to make that for him at some point. Like be able to actually make a good barbecue chicken, not just stick some breasts in the oven and glaze them. I wanted to actually be able to give him barbecue chicken.
Yeah.
And I found a recipe literally in the morning yesterday. Had to get my son to the dentist. I'm like, when I get out of that dentist appointment, there's a Meijer's right across the street, which is similar to a Walmart. And I was like, I'm gonna buy everything. And so I took the kids and we bought everything, and they chose the cake because I was gonna be lazy and not make a cake, which luckily worked out really good because then they got to choose something for him besides the candles. And we got home, and it was actually a crock pot recipe, and the lady who was showing me, oh good lord, I don't know her name, Julia. She's another YouTuber on here. I saw it from her channel. Maybe we'll tag her and just be able to say thank you, because this went like a hit.
Yeah.
It was a dry rub on top of a wet marinade and cooking them. Luckily, my drumsticks were already thawed, so I only had to cook them for the 6 hours, and then I did a broil on them with an extra glaze that caused them to get actually really, 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 really tender. Problem was, there was no way to eat them off the bone because they kept falling off.
Falling off the bone, tender.
Yeah.
Yes, that is good chicken.
And it was really, really good. And luckily, when he came home, I had already made peanut butter chocolate chip cookies, and they were still very warm. And so he just came home, took a bite from work, and he was just like so happy. The kids were asleep. So he was able to go lay down and take a nap as well from his work, which is always the best thing to refresh him. So the kids not being a hassle on me, he knew he could go lay down, and I was able to just sit and work on my project for like a straight 2 hours while cooking at the same time in my kitchen. And I was like, it was a really good day yesterday. There's not many days that actually go that smoothly.
Yes, yeah.
Well, anyway, another thing is that he's a huge fantasy nut and nerd. Like, just almost all things fantasy. He's really into very, what's called, in the genre rankings, it's called high fantasy, which means, you know, he loves Lord of the Rings, he loves The Hobbit, but he even reads fantasy authors that are in that same par or even just a bit higher with their world building. And this is the things that he likes to get lost in. He's been reading this book series that is, each book has like 5 parts in the book, and there are 8 books in. Okay. So it's like,
wow,
each book has 5 parts, which is like 5 different books in one volume.
So that's 40.
You see what
all the way? Yeah, wow.
So, and he's on like he's like on the third or fourth book on like part 2.
Wow.
And like he's been listening to it right at work. This is what he does. And he's been updating me on this journey, and he's just been like, it's just been so crazy. And he always likes to make this joke of, I wish I had a dragon, because if I just had a dragon, I'd go to work on the dragon. Like, just really, really simple, goofy things that he says all the time. And some of his favorite movies to watch with the kids is How to Train Your Dragon, and like fantasy stuff like that, where he's able to be like, that's that, and that's that, and this is how you can tell this is not a dragon, this is how you can tell this is one. Just like all these different things. And I'm just like, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, I was able to make the chicken that he's been wanting me. I've been a personal goal. He's never asked me to, but like a personal goal of mine was to make him that chicken. And this year I'm making him a dragon. And this thing is pretty cool. I'd say it's not done, but like,
she's got a lot of it done now.
This dragon is made out of felt. And last week I told you that I was really interested in a new style of crafting that I had seen on Pinterest, which was called felting, felt work. And it's literally, it's a basic concept, right? Like anyone who has ever sewn, you get these, you get the written instructions, but when you buy a pattern, you're getting these paper cutouts for what they want you to make. Pin them to the material, which in this case is felt, and you cut it out. And most of the pieces will have an alphabet system where you can tell what edges they want you to connect to what other edges, and what letters they want you to match up to, or blah, blah, blah. And they tell you how many pieces for each cutout and all these things. So it's a basic, already well exercised concept. But with these, you have to create ridges, if you can tell, and darts, and you have to put wire in them so that they're able, so you're able to mold how you want the wings to shape and dip or curve. And luckily, even with this, you have to this is pipe cleaner, so it's not, what did they call it?
I don't remember, but it was basically pipe cleaner.
It was, and it was just like and you're creating
shape
out of it, and it's just so fascinating to me how in most of my amigurumi patterns, I'm creating it almost like a digital print. Like if you've ever seen a 3D digital printer, it's starting with each layer and then going up.
Yeah.
And as a crocheter, that's generally what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm creating shapes gradually in formation and starting from top to bottom. With this, that's not what you're doing. You've already got all the pieces cut. Now you have to sew them correctly. And it's like a puzzle. It's a 3D puzzle.
Yeah.
And I've never been able to do that with the freedom of doing it like this. And it's been really fun.
And it's coming together really quickly.
I made alterations to this pattern because, me. One of them being that they had suggested to use like-colored yarn or thread to sew this bad boy together. And I chose to just get out my
invisible thread.
That way, no matter what I work on, I have it.
Yeah.
When I was drawing and stenciling out the pieces, instead of pinning the paper pieces down and cutting around them, I literally put ink on the felt.
Yeah.
That was a choice, because that meant that all my pieces had an edge of darkness to them.
Yeah, and it looks really cool.
But I decided to take that to my advantage, and I decided to edge everything so that everything looked shadowed and much more defined and outlined.
I love it.
And luckily, that has not done me bad.
Yeah. Somebody's out there angry.
And so luckily that has served me well. But there's much more definition. Like this thing is gonna have a face. I haven't even gotten there yet, but like obviously like this thing is gonna have a face, and it's gonna have eyes, and it's gonna be able to, and it's gonna have legs. Like I've already created these
feet.
So there's the foot. And there's the leg, and they obviously you're supposed to put, I will be putting it on here, but they only wanted you to make just legs, assuming that these were the arms. But with having a husband like I do, you learn the facts of the fact that there is a difference between a flying lizard like this, or I don't know. That's
whatever he calls it.
Whatever you want to call these mystical creatures. The reality is that there are some in which these are the arms, and at some point in their arms you'll see hooks in fantasy where they brace on their wings and stand up. I don't know if you've seen that, but like in the Jabberwocky and he was walking with his wings. in traditional sense, you actually have this, most dragons actually have 4 limbs. And so I, based off of the design that this creator already kind of produced, I just assimilated what I thought a front leg would look like, which would just be the bicep and an elbow with a similar foot shape as what they've already created. I didn't want to make a similar to what this is, because this is supposed to create a thigh and a knee and then the foot, like most lizards have, or even like birds that have like that backward, the backward ligament when they're bracing down. This, I wanted it to be like an actual arm where it could actually grab and look like it could. And so I'm making that so that underneath it will have front arms as well. I'm in the process of shaping this, so forgive me. And this is a lot of trial and error with its size compared to the scale, because obviously, but I don't think it's
think it's too bad, no.
No, because the face is going to get a really shape out everything. I'm really excited to be able to show you this finished product next week. I realized that the goal had been to have it done by yesterday or even today before filming.
But she started it like only a couple of days before his birthday, so.
Yeah, the reality is, and it's not that I was forgetting my husband, life got really insane because we had emergency surgeries happening in the family, and just like all these like boom 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 events where people were in town and we were hosting and and all of a sudden I knew that my husband's birthday was coming, like other events are happening this month, but I had not been able to plan ahead. And so I was very grateful to have still intentional personalized things, like his favorite meal that I was able to provide, and doing something I know he's going to enjoy. He has seen this as it's been worked on. He's very excited for its finished product. And even me and Mom were thinking about what the eyes are going to be, and I was even asking him, and he said to do what I felt would be right, because he's already enjoying this. He's trying to decide how he wants to mount this, whether it's going to be it looking like it's actually flying wherever he places it, or coming off of like a bookshelf, or whether he's going to have it actually crawling up the wall. He doesn't know yet, but he's very excited for this to be completed, and I am too.
Yeah, it is really good.
And when it's done, I will present it.
Yeah.
It will be something to show off.
You'll be able to bring it back next week. He'll be at work anyway.
So, well, he'll be watching the kids.
Yeah, he'll be watching the kids.
It's not going to be anything that big of a deal, but so yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. And as a side note, we were discussing just for a few minutes. I just want to bring up just how wonderful Ziploc bags are, just to carry all your little items in. Like, she wanted to know if I had any seed beads or sequins or anything like that to use for the eyes for this dragon, and I brought all of my contents, and they're each in little Ziploc bags inside of this sandwich bag or snack bag. And
when I came over, I was pulling out all these big gallon-sized bags in which I was putting all my supplies in. So like, this is all of my supplies and then like I had all of my felt pieces that were cut out had been in this bag with the stuffing. Yeah. And then I have a completely other, when my mom printed off the pattern, she put it in this
page protector, but even as I was cutting out the pieces, if you can see at the bottom, I put them back in the page protector. So in this big red canvas bag, I just was able to throw each separate bag in, and I knew which one I was laying out to be able to know what I was going to find in it. And it's just so nice to have things all together and know that you have everything that you need. And it was just a little conversation we had before we turned on the camera, but it was just like, you know what, I'm gonna bring that up too, because it's nice to have something like that.
Well, it's an in the pinch
Yeah.
scenario, right? Like in a perfect system, if we had everything put together in our rooms actually organized, which is like, you know,
Well,
a
crafters,
dream.
Yeah.
You
Crafters
could
are
have-
messy, right?
You could have all of your bags or all of your like
Canvas bags or whatever.
Well, what were they called? Novelty bags?
So- yeah.
The little like what we were putting, reusing those ultimate pencil cases for.
Yeah. Yeah. The pencil. Yeah. The notions.
Notion bags.
Notion bags.
Like, I would love to have a Notion bag for everything that I actually crafted separately with its own tools. Like, everything had its own supplies, so like its own pliers, its own little sewing kit, its own scissors, its own everything. So I'm not having to dig through the next one, but like I would know, hey, I want to bring my felt project. I don't want to be bringing around everything. If I already had a Notion bag already set aside for a felt craft, I could just grab the felt, grab the pattern, grab that, and just walk out the door.
Right. And that was what we did when we went to Joanne's. She needed she was saying, I need to still get the pattern. You know, I need to buy the pattern and get it printed off and all that. So I told her, I said, you know what, I don't have anything for James's birthday. Let me buy the pattern and I'll print it off for you. And that'll be part of the gift. And then what happened was we went to Joanne's and she needed some needle nose pliers to help her pull the needle through the felt. And also she needed some wire clips, wire cutters.
Because I was gonna need.
And they all came in this little hand size.
It was a 3-pack.
Yeah.
For cutters,
pliers and.
It's the ones that are like. It's like the rounding tip. These.
Yeah.
The rounded tip
Yeah.
where you're able to make a curve.
So yeah, we bought a set of I bought a set of these for her so that she could do this craft.
And she bought the wire,
and the wire that she needed for the project so that she could do this. And but as far as his birthday went, I bought the pattern and printed it off for her, and I made sure that on the pattern there was the 2 pages that had the pattern cutouts, or you know they drew on there what the dragon parts were. I gave her 2 sets of those,
which ended up working out really well because
now she can just keep the pattern, the whole pattern, but having the cutout ones was an extra way to just.
Well, I was able to look back because I cut out all the pieces, but they didn't actually have the letters to be able to reference the spots.
Yeah,
it was outside of the pieces cut.
Oh.
And so I ended up having to go back to the pattern to be able to read where the letter markings were shaped on the piece.
There you go. Yeah. So, yep, and that worked out really nice for both of us. And but now as she's working on the arm, I think I'm going to read off our scripture for this week. And it says, "The generous man will be prosperous, and he who waters will himself be watered." And that's found in Proverbs 11:25. And I'm thinking this is the New King James Version because it doesn't have the letters behind it. So, a generous man will be prosperous. Anybody who's known anybody who is very generous has always got stuff that he can give out, even, I don't know, even if it's a smile, or a kind look or a kind act, even if it's nothing at all, but just, just to do those. But a lot of generous people will give up their time, give up their money, give up their things, give give advice. However they can give, they're always very prosperous at it. They always have more than enough to give. And then the second part of this, he who waters will himself be watered. He who gives advice or time or money or a smile is going to receive those in kind. Is going to make sure that God will make sure that they receive as they're given out, or later on receive what they've given out. So in my little notes it says related to, working with, or caring for others. This is all God really asks of us, is to always be generous with other people, to love others more than you love yourself, to be kind, to be generous, to respect other people. If we would do more of that, there would be less hate in the world, less unkind words, unkind deeds in the world. And I think if we started treating others like we wanted to be treated, or even better than we want to be treated, it would be a whole lot of a better world.
I know a lot of Christians that would see this verse as very transactional, and I would try to want to be very careful in looking at it that way. There was a passage, I want to say it's in Luke, where Jesus is at a feast and people are asking him a whole load of questions, right? And in that culture that Jesus lived in, the way that feasts were maintained and kept was that every person that actually showed up would have to kind of write in their book list that this person had offered and offered them to come and gave them of their food. Therefore, in their little book, the next time they have a get-together or a party, that person was to be respected by and in kind, being brought and given an invitation as well.
Right.
But also in that culture where the host positioned you in the house,
right,
also showed the sort of significance that the host finds you in placement to him being in the head of the home.
Yeah.
The closer you are to the head of his chair is where he values you.
Yeah.
Kind of like in a ranking system.
And the farther away you are is how far away you are in relationship.
Right.
Okay.
Well, with that in mind, there were guests coming because Jesus ended up being put in the honor seat, in the Holy Grail seat.
Okay.
And there were people, like a woman, that came up and asked that her boys be positioned on either side of him. And he had to correct them and say, no one sits at the right hand of the Father except me, and I am not to say who is at my right hand.
Yeah.
It is not for me to say, because that will only take place in heaven.
Right.
And he gave grace to that, but then his disciples, which a lot of people think are older, they were teenagers, by the way.
Some of them.
Some of them were teenagers. A lot of them were. Peter was not.
Right.
And you can be able to know this not based off of the fact that he was considered a rabbi of his time, and so he was gathering up his disciples. But the children to leave their father at the age that they were at, the way that it was happening was that the fathers knew that at some point their sons were going to be going to find their own place in the world or their own work, and so to leave their father's house like they did in those things was an opportunity.
Right.
And so it was actually very cultural, and even at a position in which they had to pay their way in to a temple at one point.
Oh.
It was based off of age.
Oh.
If you are considered an adult in like the Roman Empire that they were at, they had to pay a tax to get in, and the only two that had to actually pay a tax was Peter and Jesus, because he told Peter to go to see a donkey, and in his mouth it was going to have like two.
Right.
Remember that?
Yeah.
So that proves the age of most of the disciples. They're bickering on their placement.
Right.
To go back to that point, based on their age, to be able to understand that they're bickering about the placement. And he stopped them and addressed the whole crowd, and it was able to be like, when I see people getting stuck on this, you're getting stuck on the wrong thing.
Right.
If you want to follow me, the way that I suggest is to never invite your family, to never invite your friends, to never invite those high in power or the rich. And it's not to say that you can't, but the point is, I want you to invite people that never have the chance to be blessed in the way that proves to them that I still care about them. So like, your love to these people, by following me, by partaking of my heart and how I view people, by inviting them to your table, you're setting them up for a success that cannot be taken away. You're setting them up for being able to be seen in a way that they might have never been able to be seen.
And they'll never be able to repay you.
And to do it without ever expecting, and that's what he said, do it without ever expecting them to pay you back, because your reward is in their victory.
Yeah.
Because setting them up for that success, whether it be a meal, whether it be hanging out, just being able to give them a space to exist and to talk, and to be able to get their ways and woes out on the side if they're sick or going through a hard time or whatever it may be. Offering them that space to exist actually sets them up for success. And it says that God has such a hunger to see people in success, that for you to have that same hunger proves a narrative. To only ever do it for you to get something out of it, you will never get anything out of it than what you're looking for. Like the Pharisees that were just going about and doing their woes and their prayers in the streets to be seen. Their reward is already fulfilled, the Bible says. Because they're getting what they want, they're getting attention, but yet those prayers are not going to be heard because they were not real.
Right.
And there's just this reality to the fact that the generous man will be prosperous, and he will, who waters, will himself be watered. Those that give of their time and offer it to those that really needed it, that weren't being ignored, that really just needed the time of day, if you ignore them, it's just like if you... It kind of reminds me of a garden, right? I kind of have this picture in my head. If you have a whole bunch of flowers and you only value one, you're never going to actually see the beauty of the whole entire garden. And if you want to actually water everything, you're going to be able to give them equal drink, equal opportunity of all their prosperity. But if you're taking of what you are supposed to be giving that one plant or seed and giving it over to something else, you're actually going to drown the other plant. And not even be able to have the other one.
And you're going to kill both of them.
Yeah.
You're going to kill both of them.
Because it wasn't as it was intended.
Right. Equal watering for all plants. That way you can see the beauty of all of it.
Well, and and that's not to say that everything needs an equal share. I'm just trying to point out the fact that the person that pours into another life will likely be able to have his jar be able to be continuously watered.
Yes.
If you're pouring out of your ability, the likelihood is that it will be replenished.
Yes.
and others. And I understand that in situations where you might, because I think about this, like it's hard sometimes when you have a spouse that doesn't water your jar, or possibly your kids don't offer you a lot in return, or just different things. There are ways in which we do get watered if we're doing what God wants us to do. By design, we will be successfully watered.
Yeah.
And that takes really understanding what God's expectations of you and your roles in people's lives are, and making sure you understand it. Otherwise, you could drown or starve.
Yeah. Yep. And that's the whole thing of it. And that's found in Proverbs 11:25. And we will put that in the description area for you too.
We can also share the link to this pattern if anyone is interested for the next 2 weeks, as I am finishing it up and showing it off next week. We'll share it as well in that one.
Yeah.
But the last thing I want to say before we end the video is that they did suggest having a hardening agent on like a stiffening agent on the felt.
Yeah.
And an easy way to be able to do that, if you don't have like starch or anything, is to be able to do diluted glue.
Yeah.
You just take some crafting glue, I'm talking like literally Elmer's, and you just put it in some water, you stir it, and like this one is a washable glue, which you would think, why would you use a washable glue and put it in water? It just means that it goes clear.
Yeah.
So even though it might be purple when you put it in and you stir it in water, it goes clear, but you can tell the residue is still there because there's no soap attached to it. And so when you put it on it stiffens the felt, and to be able to be a little bit more
moldable,
sturdy.
Yeah.
So there you have that. I know we ran a little bit longer. Our plan today had actually been to only be a half hour to 40 minutes, but obviously
we had a
just
lot of tips and tricks in there.
Yeah, so we hope that you enjoyed it. For those that stuck around to the end, we thank you for that. We love spending time with you, and
we love your comments.
We love just being able to have good fellowship with you once a week. It's fun for us, and we hope it's fun for you. And as always, we love you, and we hope that you have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next week, and until then, we hope that you stitch your way
to mental health.